Hello guys, this is a response to BadMouseProductions. I'm going to have to be quite quiet because I'm still in my parents' house for the next 3 days or so, and it's quite late. But I'm responding to this video. I'm not a anarchist, I'm a market socialist, so I don't necessarily, I can't speak from a position of authority necessarily answering all of these questions. However, what I did say in the comment section was that I thought the way that he asked these questions, the way he presented these questions was really, really sincere. And I just thought it's the type of dialogue I would like to encourage, even if what I bring to the table isn't exactly what was asked for. What he's bringing to the table is exactly the type of thing that I would ask for. So, in light of that, I'm going to try and offer responses just from my market socialist perspective.
Would I have to feel annoyed with the gear that I have bought from other companies?
So my responses are going to be much shorter than I think lots of people's. No, you should be absolutely fine with whatever you own, regardless of whom you bought it from, because you live in the real world. There's no point punishing yourself for having integrity. That's almost the exact opposite. If you've got integrity, then that should be a good thing. It shouldn't be the type of thing that forces you to not be able to get your view out because the laptop you might have bought was made by a particular company. That would be ridiculous, I think.
Do all ANCOMs believe in the Labour theory of value?
I guess I should say what I believe as someone who isn't an anarcho-communist, and I guess this would also apply for market anarchists. I believe that the value of something is, in theory, that which someone is willing to pay. However, I would say that you do have sort of an objective idea of something's value, which can be misrepresented by what someone is willing to pay. So, for example, a lot of brands like Apple products, I would say, are overpriced, even though people are willing to pay for that amount. So I guess you would say that in that sense, I believe in a theory of value that is independent from what people are willing to pay for it. But I think practically speaking, we can talk in terms of just what people are willing to pay for things. If someone is willing to pay X amount of money for a product, then that is the person's wage. Wage in inverted quotation marks there.
Could I still give to charity?
Well, I'd encourage it. I would say it's admirable. Definitely give to charity.
Do all ANCOMs support feminism?
I guess it depends how you consider the validity of people who functionally agree with feminism but don't identify with the label. I think there is, because communism is the idea that we should move past the construct of gender, really. Or certainly the idea that we should have equality between the genders, at least. And I would argue that is feminism, or at least practically speaking, the only way to really achieve true equality, in the sense that communists talk of it, is through feminist understanding of the world and feminist solutions to problems in the world. But there might be people who don't want to identify as feminists, and that would be the most I could say. I don't think you could be an anarcho-communist and reject the basic principles of feminism. Now, maybe you could be a market anarchist. I think it's possible. I'm less exclusionary in terms of whom I describe as anarchists. So I do think maybe you could say that there are anarchists who aren't feminist, and I don't know. I wouldn't discard it offhand, is what I would say.
Do ANCOMs agree with taxes?
Me personally, I don't think taxes would be ideal, but I don't. There are a lot of things that I prioritize above getting rid of taxes. So I think I could easily have a conversation about what I would support politically that would include taxes. There is a conceivable model of society that I could advocate for that would involve taxes. It would involve less taxes than we have currently, but it would have taxes. But obviously the ideal is no taxes, in my case, and in the case of anarcho-communists, I believe.
Would anarchons agree that even though they find capitalism to be evil, would they agree that in the relative sphere, in the freest areas where capitalism has been able to get there, it has elevated the standard of living exponentially in comparison to the feudal living, which only created enough to survive?
Yeah, I think that socialism could have been a thing much earlier on. In fact, I might say socialism could have been a thing since the dawn of history, and we would be better off if that had been the case. However, capitalism is better than a lot of systems. In capitalism, its most free forms, is better than a lot of systems, and of course, the implication when I said that I could support a system of taxation, I could also support a system of private property. Basically, I don't believe in any socialist system that would have taxation. The extent to which I support taxation is also the extent to which I could support capitalism in its, I guess you would say, freest form. I believe is the term you used. Relatively low taxation. It would have a quite high minimum wage. I don't know how you regard that in terms of freedom. So yeah, I don't hate capitalism. I think there are improvements that could be made to capitalism. I don't think we've seen the best form of capitalism that we could see. And I think that there is a form of capitalism that could be part of a peaceful transition towards a better form of socialism.
Do most ANCOMs support Greenpeace?
Don't care.
If I am like Michael Moore and I say that I hate capitalism and criticize it all the time, yet make loads and loads of money through my enterprises and my businesses and so forth, am I being a hypocrite?
Well, not technically, because anarcho. Oh, sorry, I don't know. I guess anarcho-communists do. I don't oppose people having huge amounts of personal wealth if it's wealth that they made themselves and it doesn't interfere with the ability of others to make their own wealth. So, if in the case of Michael Moore, he can be as rich as he likes if he produces content that people buy. Now, does capitalism maybe help him amass huge amounts of money? Well, at the end of the day, he's profiting off capitalism by virtue of the fact he's criticizing capitalism. If we didn't have capitalism, he wouldn't make any money off criticizing capitalism. But I don't think that makes him a hypocrite. No, I think, well, if I leave university and we haven't achieved a socialist revolution, I will enter into a managerial job probably, and hopefully become basically a capitalist, someone who makes huge amounts of money off the backs of other people's labour, just because, like I say, it's the real world. And if we're going to have capitalism, I'm going to be as rich as do as well from it as I can be. I'm a socialist for the reason that I think it would be better for the world and for myself. But if we're going to have capitalism, I might as well make sure it's the best capitalism it can be for myself.
Oh, and if I buy loads of, eccentric stuff and don't donate as much money as I spend on myself.
Yeah, that's also fine.
Do you agree with the minimum wage, even though it hurts some workers who don't have enough skills?
Well, again, is this in a ideal society or not? Because in an ideal society, no. In a society where the negative effects of capitalism and wage labour are mitigated, yes, I do support a minimum wage. I think there are better solutions to the problems of workers who don't have skills than, getting rid of the minimum wage and allowing them to work for hardly any money at all. I don't think that's a realistic solution to the problem.
What are your thoughts on trigger warnings on campuses and trigger warnings in general?
That's sort of a topic that's to be discussed at another time, honestly, and I haven't gone into it at all on my channel, so I'm not going to just make an offhand remark about it. Generally, I would say, yeah, I think it's reasonable. I think there are some points at which trigger warnings make sense.
Do you like Che Guevara?
I don't know that much about him, honestly. I assume you know something that you personally dislike about him, and therefore you don't like the idea of liking him, or you don't like the idea that anarcho-communists would blindly like him. which makes sense. I personally can't say that I blindly like him, at least insofar as I don't really know much about him. I don't own one of his t-shirts, I can say that much.
Do you like Russell Brand?
I was talking to my dad, like, literally this morning about Russell Brand, and I was saying, it's all very well him saying that he dislikes capitalism, but he's never actually gone into what capitalism is. He seems to just be using it as a buzzword, and I think a lot of his content uses buzzwords. However, having said that, I am subscribed to his channel. I don't find him very funny. I will say that as a comedian, before he was that involved in politics, I never found him very funny. It was only when he got involved in politics I actually thought he had anything to offer at all. And you know, I would say he's not too hard to like. I don't find him insufferable. Just take what he produces with a grain of salt is my general idea. I certainly wouldn't say that he even makes the list of channels I would ask people to subscribe for academic reasons.
If I were to become an anarcho-communist, would I have to disown and despise all of my favorite libertarian bloggers and speakers like Julie Borowski, Larkin Rose, Jeff Tucker, in a very sympathetic way, Milton Friedman, and so forth if I became an anarcho-communist?
No, you could like them if you can pull it off. Then by all means like them. I find Julie Borowski pretty insufferable, honestly, and not just because I disagree with her on basically everything she's ever said in the history of her existence. But if you can watch her and think, yeah, this is fine, then that's fine. I don't hate that guy T. I disagree with a lot of his videos, but I think he makes a sufficient number of videos that are just honestly, answering the criticisms of anarcho-capitalism. That I think, I would say he's not a bad content producer. I wouldn't describe myself as a fan of him. I'm not sure if you could possibly describe yourself as a big fan of someone who argues for a position that's pretty contrary to what you believe in. So, I wouldn't suggest you're under any sort of moral obligation to dislike anarcho-capitalist libertarian bloggers.
Do I have to condone the use of violence in certain scenarios, even though it's not being directly initiated upon me?
No, you don't have to. I don't really care about the whole violence thing because I'm an arsehole.
As I am against aggressing violence because I find it the easiest and most consistent way to stand by. How do we deal with stuff like, high in demand, high skilled jobs like surgeons who might not necessarily want to do it if no money incentive is there to propel them to do it?
I assume this is sort of a problem for the ANCOMs rather than the market-based socialists, because while I think there are lots of different approaches to how exactly you would pay for skills and services as opposed to products in a market socialist society, and I'm not going to go into that here. It's the question of there being no monetary incentive, of course, isn't the case.
Unions? What are your feelings on unions in sort of standing up for workers' rights and in response to that also sort of jeopardizing everybody else in a sense as well, Winter of 79 and all that?
Unions can be problematic, I guess, but they're only problematic as a consequence of the other issues in our society. If we directed our resources towards actual jobs that need doing, then I don't think that we would have any problem with unions. Sorry, that sounds a bit vague. It's sort of, a lot of these problems are quite broad, I'm afraid, so I'm just going to give my opinion on it without any real justification and say I don't think unions are inherently a problem, but I do agree that sometimes unions can put particularly when they're striking against the government. It can put the government in a situation where they don't really know what to do.
I make films in my spare time. Would I be able to hierarchically control the production of that film with other people and pay them to do it for me? Or would that not be allowed?
That's actually a good question. But I would say the answer is yes, because it's a temporary position. Someone's job in that case would be to be an actor. It wouldn't be, oh, I'm trying to word things properly. An actor wouldn't say, I work for Steven Spielberg. They would say, oh, currently I'm working on a film that Steven Spielberg is directing, and that would be the case here. Someone wouldn't be working for you. They would be offering their services to you. And I should clarify, and actually, how exactly it works, I'm not going to be able to go into here because I'm sure it will be controversial when I bring it up. I'm not against the idea of wages, and if that just blew your mind because it sounds like the least socialist thing that's ever been said, I'll go into it at a different point.